All right. So, what I would like for all of you is to, no matter what week it is, be able to answer the following questions. Is your student where they need to be? Are they ahead? Are they behind? If they are behind, by how much? And what can you do to get caught up? So that's exactly what we're doing today. I'm going to show you how to read the pacing guides so you know where you are, um, and how to read the percentage guides so you can know what grade you are and how you can make up the difference. So let's start by looking at the actual pacing guides. Um, Obviously, the pacing guides you have aren't just a little ribbon of paper, it's a full sheet, but on any given week, you only need to know what are we doing this week. Now, this is week 11, which is next week. We're currently on week 10, but I wanted to show you all what next week should look like for you. So have this document out and maybe even print them off and tell your student, hey, get on ELA, go into literature, complete those lessons. When you're done with them, let me know, and then you can get like a pen and scribble on your piece of paper, or you can highlight, or you can make check marks, or whatever's fun for you or for your student. In composition, they need to be starting to learn about theme essays and gum. There's 2 lessons to do. In vocabulary, there's nothing. Math, there's only 3. Again, hey, after you finish Unit 3, Lesson 9, come get me, and I'll let you scribble it out on the piece of paper. That makes sure that your student is where they're supposed to be, and maybe it's fun for them. Who knows? Science, there's 3 lessons. Arkansas history, there are these 5 here. Please follow these pacing guides to a T. If you are not following these, it's going to be extremely hard for your student to have a successful year because they're going to be confused during class. They're not going to know that they're supposed to be on Unit 12 and gum, so on and so forth. So please follow these guides. Now, I am aware that music and art don't have a pacing guide, and that's okay. It's still a class, it's still for a grade. We just wanted to give you the flexibility of choosing to skip around or to start on something interesting, however you want to do it. But on any given week, they need to be doing 1 lesson in music and 1 lesson in art. I'm sorry, 2 lessons in art. I don't know why I said 1, but 2. At the end of the quarter, so by the way, this big bar, this was week 9. So this is week 9. This is the week we're currently on. It's extremely simple for you to know what your student's grade is at any given moment. Let me pull up a calculator and show you. So in art, they should have been at 16 lessons or at 23.5%. And percentages is the default view in your progress tool. I'm going to talk about that here in just a second. But let's keep talking about lessons because it's easier. Let's say your student, well, actually looking at this week, by the end of the week it needs to be 18. So let's look at that 18 instead. Let's say they have 12. So 12 is where they are. Divide it by where they should be. 12 divided by 18. Then your student currently has a D, a 67, rounding up from here. So now my student currently has a D. We obviously need to get this caught up a little bit. So you would keep slowly pushing towards getting this 18. But it's more obvious if you say, hey, I only have 8 out of 16. That's like half. It's less obvious if you're like, hey, I have 18% out of 23%. I have no idea if I'm on track. What's my grade? How far behind am I? So it is easier, in my opinion, to talk about number of lessons because percentages, they can be hard to think about. But in any kind of view, when you go to your progress tool, there's a little button right here, show number of lessons. So you click on this here, make sure you're showing everything that needs to be shown, and then hit update. And instead of seeing something like 18.75%, it'll show you an actual number of mastered lessons, which may be easier to compare to this for you. So with that being said, here's the guide itself. I guess each class has 2 parts to it. So let's look at math specifically for just a second. This column in this column are about the week that you're currently on. So this 2 and this 1.35% only applied to week number 7. This week here, week number 10, these two only apply to this week. These two numbers, on the other hand, that 19 and that maybe 13% rounding, that's what's going on this week. I know that this is a big document, and sometimes people see a whole bunch of numbers and they go, whoa, intimidating. But don't, If it's easier for you, get a piece of paper or an edge of a book, and let me show you what you can do. I'm just going to draw a square real quick. We're going to take this, we're going to move this down like that. There we go. So now we don't see anything right here. The only two numbers that matter in the whole wide world are these two for math, right? So this is next week. Next week, your student should have 22 mastered lessons. And again, let's say they have 18. It's just 18 divided by that 22. That's where we get that OLS grade. So they're barely hanging on to their B. You got to get those made up, right? A couple lessons can make a huge difference. And this is the same for all the classes. Do you want to know if you're behind in gum? Well, look right here. Let's move to this week. So week number 10, if your student has 8 lessons, you're exactly where you should be. If they only have 5, well, you're a little bit behind. If they're at 11%, perfect. If they're at 9%, you're a little bit behind. But even that's still just basic division. You just do 9% divided by the 11%, and that's an 81 also. So no matter how you're looking at it, it still works the exact same way. You just have to make sure that you're double checking this so that no matter what, you always know if your student is where they need to be. Now, it is worth mentioning, these can't just be any old 8 lessons that you choose to follow. They have to come from the pacing guide, right? So those two things are what your entire ARVA year should be based off of. The percentage guide and the pacing guides, because those tell you where you need to be and how to get there. So attendance also is a huge deal. And it is worth mentioning, let me go back. Those of you who enrolled late, if you weren't here on the first day of school, this 19 won't apply to you. Yours may be a 14 or a 13. Either way, you're still looking at the same spot. So you should have received, or at least you will receive, if you're in my homeroom, a personalized copy. You're still looking in the same spot, right here. This is the only number that matters for this week. That's the only number that matters for this next week. So you're looking in the same spot, even if your number is different, the process is still the exact same. Attendance in general needs to be 30 hours a week. The exceptions, were when we had a day off for Labor Day and when we have 3 days off here in November for Thanksgiving break. Those are going to be different because there's less days that week. But in general, 30 hours a week in attendance total. 1 hour needs to be in PE. 45 minutes needs to be in health. 15 needs to be in safety. Now, these are unique grades. Quarter 1, we were very lenient on the grades that we gave. For the semester grade, we cannot be lenient for you guys. So if your student doesn't have their 18 hours, they may not get an A. In fact, if they have 15 out of the needed 18 hours, they're going to get a B in PE. And, something that's easy to avoid, should be avoided. So make sure you're getting the appropriate time in each one of these classes. Safety, because it's only 15 minutes a week, this is in minutes, and it's simple division too. If you wanted to take that 273 and then divide it by 60, because there's 60 minutes an hour, that's about nearly 5 hours. In fact, we can just say that it's 5. If your student only gets 3 out of the 5 hours, they're going to have a D, which is very easy to avoid, so please, please, please avoid it. And every single week, you can set aside 15 minutes. Hey, we're going to talk about safety. We're going to talk about tornadoes and fire prevention and things like that, whatever it may be. Or you can go ahead and say, hey, this week we're spending an hour every single day, and we're just going to be done with it for the semester after that. However you do, it's up to you, as long as you have that 273 minutes. Nearly 14 hours in health, just over 18 hours in PE. Okay, so make sure you're following that. Some of you, inevitably, weren't happy with the grade that you received. Maybe your student has a C in science and you really need it to be an A. Maybe your student got an F in Arkansas history, and you know what? It should be an A2. I have full faith that every single one of your students can be straight A students. And here's how to make sure that happens. The first thing you're going to do, write down all the classes that you didn't get the grade that your student wanted. You need to know how many lessons you did and how many lessons you should have done. So this should say should have done. Forgive me for that. And we're going to use the pacing guides to figure out what we're missing. Then we just do some basic subtraction, and then we figure out, there's 9 weeks left, starting next week, week number 11. So there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You have 9 more weeks starting next week to get your student where they want to be. And that's not even including Christmas break or anything like that. So let me show you a real example of a student. This student did 16 lessons in Arkansas history, a little bit behind. By the end of the 9 weeks, they should have been at 43. So all we do, 43 expected minus the 16 that they mastered means that they're missing 27 lessons. And it just so happens that when you take that 27 missing, divide it by the 9 weeks that we're currently doing, it gives an additional 3 lessons a week. You can find the time to do the additional 3 lessons a week to get that 100%. And either way, even if you do 2 additional lessons a week, it's going to help their grade. So here's what you do from here. Now that you know it's 3 additional week, you have to look at the pacing guides. So next week, let's talk about this week. This week, the student should be doing 4 lessons, which is Unit 5, these 3, then Unit 6, this 1. In addition to these 4 lessons, they should also come up here and do Unit 2, Lessons 7 and 8, and Unit 3, Lesson 1. And we know that because looking at their completed lessons, it looks like they completed Unit number 1 and most of Unit 2. So I just scratched them off on the pacing guide. So they stopped at 6, so that means they have to make up 7 and 8, and then Unit number 3, Lesson 1. And this isn't hard, it's not complicated. I know it's a big sheet of paper, but, you just have to slowly whittle at it, And by week 18, you're going to have almost this entire list here and this entire list here, completed. And they're going to get their A, they're going to get their B, whatever it may be. You just have to make sure they're doing it. One more thing before I stop. It's unfortunate how many students have a whole bunch of non-mastered lessons. Now, students, learning coaches, these lessons can be hard. We know that they're hard. We want your students to succeed, so we automatically give them 3 tries. But if you notice, this student only tried once on each one of these. I'm willing to bet that this student who got this 40% here on point slope form, if they had taken the test, written down everything they had gotten wrong, went to their learning coach and talked about it, and then studied, and then took it again, they could have passed. You know what? Let's say they did. Let's say they got a 60. That's still an improvement. Write down the things you got wrong again, study again, and then master it. If you need an additional try, if you need a 4th, just let me know. I want your student to get good grades, and they won't get the good grade unless it goes from not mastered to completed. This number 12 is all we're looking at. Even if this is a 79.999, it's not helping. It has to be the 80 to go over here. To help you guys get there, 100% of your classes have an online student guide in the materials tab. It gives student questions and it gives tips for the learning coach. So I have faith in you, and good luck.